Hi there, it's Ian here, and you're watching Grumpy Opinions, the show where I'm going to tell you all about what I think of films, TV shows, games, and life in general. Let's get on with the show.
Snowpiercer is a Netflix TV show about the train in the freezy cold world that's miles and miles long, and it's the only thing in existence. Episode 3, Access His Power, starts off with a me montage about how the dead guy's arm had a doohickey cut out of it, and how it got traded all over the place, and it's basically a door key to further up the train, so put a pin in that because it might be important later. And at the front of the train, Melanie reads off a fake wee message from Mr. Wilford to the whole of her heads of department, and it's pretty well received, all except for the security Irish guy who spots a line from Churchill in it, and you see he wants to make the point that there's trouble on the train, so she has the idea of moving up Fight Night, which is a big boxing championship thing, right to that night instead of it being later in the week, and that'll distract everybody from everything that's going on. Meanwhile, Layton's been told off for mucking about last week, but he's still got some ideas about what to do, although there's no chance of him getting to speak to innocent Nikki yet, because she's still totally out of it. But they do have one lead, and that's that the dead informant was spying on the black market, where there's some kind of big drug trade going on. And everybody in the tale knows all about it because the skeezy English footballer guy has been selling it to them for blowjobs. And when they lean on him, he runs off to his dealer, but things end up looking up because everyone's getting a wee bit pally now. Even more so since Rent-A-Cop Till heard from a girlfriend that Nikki's totally awake, so they all go scooting off to see her. But when they find her, she's awake but still in total withdrawal and out of it completely, and it's the same nasty drug that they've been talking about. Turns out the doctor had been selling to the black market janitors in exchange for things he needed to treat the folk in the comas. But remember, it's fight night, and there's a serious punching game about to go on, so Layton sneaks in, and as best as you can when you stick out like a sore thumb, but he ends up sending Till to run interference while he speaks to Zara, and she says that she's going to organise a meeting and gives him his old wedding ring back, one that he gave her back when she left the tail, and he goes up to chat with the Janny man, who ends up telling him what's happening and what's going on, and they agree that if he gives some info over, Layton will keep the brakeman off of his back about the drug trade. But Layton also wants something else in exchange for his ring. And just then, druggy Nikki walks in, and Till has to get her out of there, but not before she's spotted by Ginger Rich Kid and her boyfriend. So, Layton's willing to give up the info, but only if he gets to go and say hi to Josie in the tail, and when he does, he tells her that he loves her and gives her a great big smack and kiss, and saying that there's only doors between us, which totally isn't obvious for code. Sure enough, he's managed to pass her the door key when he gave her a kiss, and just as Layton's about to spill the beans, the guy he's describing does a bad murder on the guard and the nighttime medic, and then he sits down in front of Nikki, and it looks pretty bad. So what did I think? Well, I think that the show's definitely shaping up to be a bit more of an interesting thing than originally I thought. It's got more of a mystery plot than seemed to be first apparent, and also one that seems like it's building into some kind of grand conspiracy. And although an awful lot of the show seems about as subtle as a brick to the face, like how it's totally pointing out towards this ginger lassie as being a major suspect, but it's kind of been doing that since episode 1, just showcasing her in every scene, and not really giving a good reason, but then mentioning her moving about the train. And I was also curious when this episode started throwing in a load of new characters, not just folk like, the janitors, but also engineers, and then this guy and some of the folk that Oz was talking to at the start, because some of these guys actually had lines, and there was this shot and then this shot in the scene, and they were really conspicuous. And now part of this was clearly because one of the guys was a janitor who obviously passed on the information, which is why Oz got dragged up. And I don't know who this guy is, but as I said, this was really conspicuous that he got a line, because if he was just a bit part or a guy or an extra, he wouldn't get that kind of showcasing of his face. It just doesn't happen in TV shows. And I thought the idea of there being this whole subterranean economy on the train underneath everything was kind of cool. I mean, it's kind of normal for dystopian shows, and black markets aren't exactly something that doesn't happen in the real world. And I've mentioned before that this show reminds me a little bit of Battlestar Galactica. Now, interestingly, BSG actually did have a whole episode entirely about that. It was all just about the black market on the ship. And I kind of like that this isn't being set up as a one-time thing, but rather these might be characters that turn up again and again as part of an ongoing part of the society. And there was also this whole high-rise thing.
The train is just a high-rise laying on its side.
Now, I can't say for sure, but I think that this was a nod to the famous J.G. Ballard book, High Rise, which is basically about a set of luxury flats where the poor live at the bottom and the rich at the very top, and the whole thing is basically a stratified version of society. In fact, if you can, it's definitely worth checking out the film High Rise. They made it a couple of years ago. It's basically done in the style of if they'd made this film in the 70s, this is what it would have looked like, but done with modern actors that you'd probably know and recognise. And yeah, it's a very clever, interesting piece of work. and it's got a fantastic soundtrack, and it's exactly the same kind of microcosm of society that Snowpiercer is, but as the guy says, it's a tower block on its side, and that kind of made me chuckle a wee bit. And I also like how there was wee decisions, like about the subplot and the resources, and how Melanie is avoiding decoupling the tail cars, but at the same time the people in the tail know that this is something that might happen, so they're taking their own measures to try and stop it, like by bunking up together and moving everybody up to use less power and less water. And it's all about everybody trying to help and how the needs of the society work if everybody helps each other. And that seems to be the message here, with only the people who are not part of it, like the super rich socialites, moaning and bitching about things, or just being a bit completely psycho. And finally, we actually got to hear a bit more about Mr. Wilford. He really was a person, because I was starting to wonder if he actually was a real person or not, but apparently some people actually met him. The idea being that he's in part of the train that's biolocked and no one else can get in. Now, the audience already knows that Melanie and the engineers run the train, and that she does like 20 different jobs. So where is he? Is he dead? I don't think he is, and this could be a bit of a total spoiler, but I totally know whose voice that was playing on the machine.
I'm not one of the species, but we've been through a bumpy patch.
I mean, that was Sean Bean. Everybody recognises Sean Bean's voice. And he's the actor who dies and everything else, so it would be kind of ironic if he's playing somebody who only you think he's dead and he actually isn't. And also, they have actually announced that he's going to be in season 2. So, yeah, I mean, I heard that before I even saw the show. It was one of the first bits of information that was kicking around the internet about this, even like beyond anything else. So, unfortunately, they've let that cat out of the bag. And I like that Melanie is actually the one writing and re-editing all of his messages. And I think Jennifer Connelly really does this well. I mean, she's a great actress. And the way that she read some of the words without actually looking at them, because obviously she already knows what it says because she wrote it. And even though she theatrically got them through the vacuum tube and pretends to have not seen it before, I mean, I do wonder quite how many people who on the train actually know that she really does run the train, because it kind of looks like a few of them already have their suspicions. But this show is still finding its way. And there's an awful lot of clumsy stuff. Like the whole bit at the beginning with Layton's memory of the day that Zara left. I mean, it was just so ugly and horribly shot. And stuff like that really makes me think that this show isn't top tier work. I mean, not by any regard. And on top of that, there was a load of little moments where the writing showed cracks in it. It was a bit amateurish. For example, the fight night scene, where there's this whole thing about Layton needing to get rid of Till. That's played up like it's a big problem and a big deal that she's following everywhere. But he literally says, I need to go and speak to this person. She's not going to say anything if you're there. And she goes, okay, that's fine. And then he makes this whole big song and dance to the janitors that he's going to get rid of her. And so, she isn't going to follow him. And then she literally just wanders off because she sees Nikki. He doesn't have anything to do with it. But he doesn't even look to see if she's gone away. And that's what made it a bit weird. It felt like that had just been forgotten in the writing, or that there was a more convoluted thing that at some point in the draft that's then just gotten completely thrown out. It just didn't make any sense. It was scrappy. And quite a few scenes in this episode felt like something from a soap opera, where there were scenes that just cut off way too fast. Like, you never got a chance for characters to actually talk for more than about 2 minutes. I mean, there was the scene where it was the lunchtime chat, where Layton and Roche are getting to know each other, and then suddenly Till bursts in and goes, hey, we've got to go and look at this thing, and he runs out the room. Or when they get to actually meet Nikki, and then boom, suddenly Melanie runs in and is like, no, you can't interrogate her. Or just after that, they're chatting with the doctor about the drugs, and then Layton sees the hair and he's like, oh no, now we need to go and do something else. It's really frenetic and discombobulating, and not in a good way. And it's a bad sign of writing and storytelling when it's that kind of sort of really thin without any real depth to it, and then rushing from one scene to the other so that you don't actually have your characters sitting down and talking, because if you do, they might learn something about each other and they might actually have to come up with character moments and have them actually doing something that makes sense. And I've still got a big problem with David's acting, where he comes across as if everything that Layton does is really obvious and see-through, and it's supposed to be, but then everyone reacts to it as if they're totally had the wool pulled over their eyes. And I wonder if the script was written where he's supposed to be a better actor, and the problem is that this actor's just not actually managing to really do it. I mean, I'm not trying to be nasty on the guy, but I'm not feeling his performance at all. So overall, this episode was still an improvement on the pilot, and although I'm not completely blown away by it, it is actually shaping up to be a kind of comfortable mid-tier TV show. And with luck, it'll be one that'll pan out into more interesting episodes and plot shenanigans. And then, considering they've already greenlit season 2, then hopefully by that point it'll have emerged into its own thing and really found where it's trying to go. So till next time, I've been Ian, and these have been my grumpy opinions. And also we shout out to Michelle Forbes, Judith Coloma, my top tier patrons. Thanks again, and thanks to everybody else who watches the channel or supports me on Patreon. You guys are what make it all worth it. So thank you very much. Everybody stay safe, everyone stay well, and I'll catch you all soon. Bye bye.